Margaret Sanger. We're going to talk about her. Maybe some things about her you never knew, or maybe you knew about it. Either way, we'll dive into her right after a word from our sponsor.
Crime across the country is at an all-time high. Even a family road trip is taking a risk. We don't want the feeling of being unprotected and vulnerable. We found Concealed411.com. Concealed411.com gave us the help we needed to legally apply for a concealed carry permit that's recognized in over half of the country. Concealed411.com simplifies the process to apply, and it's all online. We used their free qualification process to answer a few questions and applied for our permit right from home. Thanks to reciprocity laws between states, when you're issued a New Hampshire concealed carry permit, you can legally carry in any state that recognizes your New Hampshire permit. It only takes minutes to apply, so don't wait. Exercise your rights today. Have peace of mind. Apply today. Go to www.concealed411.com. That's www.concealed411.com.
Margaret Sanger was born in 1879. She died in 1966. Many things about Margaret Sanger have been hid from public knowledge for a long time because people don't want to acknowledge the past, because if they acknowledge the past, then they'll have to acknowledge their wrongdoings. She was the inventor and arbiter of Planned Parenthood. And the resources that she put behind Planned Parenthood had a target audience. And that target audience was Black America. Now, she put a whole bunch of other people in there with it. Now, when you hear the kinds of people she linked to Black America, you'll start to see a pattern. Deformed, mentally ill, some kind of a deformity in the birth, they all linked to Black America because she saw Blacks as what she would call wrong. It was not and should not be part of society. So she was going on a campaign to eradicate the Black race. She was a very high-ranking person in the KKK. She spoke at many of their rallies. And when she invented Planned Parenthood, the entire goal was to eradicate the Black race on the soil of the U.S. Now, another person got a hold of her idea and ideals. And people don't talk about this very much, but the person that followed her lead was Adolf Hitler. That part many people may not know. But the whole eugenics movement, she was the one that really, obviously it's been around for a while because there have been many places on earth where they didn't like someone because of how they looked. But this particular attack that she had, this method, was specifically aimed at one particular genre of people, this eugenics movement. Hitler took it up and he applied it to the same way to the Jews. Margaret Sanger led a whole crusade of people that had very, 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 very evil intentions. So what exactly brought people to bring her as such a liberating person? How did she get such a big voice in especially the feminist movement? And how in the world can someone who was about murdering an entire generation of people because of how they looked, how did she get such a big platform in order to push this message? How? It was very simple. You have to make sure everyone believes you and that it is a problem that everyone needs to address. How do you do it? You paint the person you want to have eradicated as a bad guy. Pretty simple thing to do, especially in the time that she grew up. The majority of people that were in power all viewed Black people a certain way. Ironically, the people who did not have the power did not view Black people a certain way. So she joined the people that had the power. She had always been a very racist person from birth, apparently, because even when she was a young person, this is how she lived. But as she got older and started to move in certain movements, she penned a letter. Now, this letter, if you were to read it today in any forum, public or private, people would wince. They would absolutely cringe back in how she spoke about Black people. At one point in the letter, she went on to say, by the way, this was called the Negro Project that she was a part of. She went on to tell the people that she was trying to recruit that she had to make sure that she got the Black preachers involved. You see, because while Black people may listen to some white people, they'll really listen to a Black preacher. So if they can convince the Black preacher to come on their side and carry that message that Black people have something inherently wrong with them, and that they need to be able to control birth and they need to be able to limit the amount of them on earth, she would win. Do you think she succeeded? Indeed. If you look today at the so called black churches, they are very big proponents of abortion. Don't you find that a little bit weird? I'm yet to hear white churches speak like this. The black church is one of the only ones you'll hear abortion being praised as a woman's option for birth control. Many don't realize that what they are doing is actually white supremacy, but touted as black pride. Margaret Sanger was a brilliant person because she managed to do something after death that people are still struggling to do while alive today. And that's convince an entire nation that they're worthless. How do you do that? How does one get to the point where you go to a public forum and tell everyone you are worthless and your offspring should die, and everyone applauds you? You have a very special skill if you can do that. Margaret Sanger did, apparently, because if you look at Planned Parenthood today, she is praised as the creator, but they all say, well, it's different now than it was then. Yet still around every corner in the low-income black areas, you find a Planned Parenthood.
Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, once said, colored people are like weeds, they need to be exterminated.
People don't understand that 79% of Planned Parenthood clinics are located in minority communities.
That's still the case. They are pervasive throughout lower income black areas and impoverished black areas. Why? Why is it also that since the advent of Planned Parenthood, the number of babies killed that are of black origin is over 20 million strong? Can you imagine if someone today were to tell you that there was someone who went out and took care of 20 million people by killing them? You'd call that genocidal. Not over here. With Margaret Sanger at the helm, it was called birth control, Planned Parenthood. You don't find that kind of odd that you're calling something Planned Parenthood and you're actually planning the lack of parenthood? The entire name is an oxymoron. You're not planning parenthood, you're planning the absence of it. And people are buying it, hook, line, and sinker. 20 million black babies since the advent of Planned Parenthood in 1964, 63. And of course, you remember what passed in 65, the Civil Rights Bill. She worked with them too, by the way. That's a whole nother story that we'll get into at some point. Since that point, 20 million? Do you understand what that number is? Hitler was only responsible for about 6. Maybe 8 at the most. She has been responsible for 20 million dead black people. And counting. That number was only till 2018. 20 million. Now you take that number and let's amplify it by regeneration. Let's say that those people lived. And now in America, our population is somewhere around 41 to 42 million black Americans right now, right? So you take that 20 million, now you're up to 60. But that's not even counting in who may have had babies and offspring. So let's double that. From 20 to 40 million. Now you're 80 million strong. Now, offspring having offspring since 1960. Let's say we add another 10 million. You're up to 90 million strong. You have doubled the black population and its voting power, its purchasing power, and its wealth. Do you see why they could not and did not allow that? Do you see why Planned Parenthood is an abomination? And no, this is not about being pro-black or pro-white. This is about being sense. This is about brains, having intelligence. If you murder, life can't continue, right? That's pretty obvious. But for some reason, when you murder and it's a baby, it's choice. And not only that, you do it to a certain demographic. It's not genocide, it's assistance. Margaret Sanger was a witch, a demon, a vile human being And she got credit for doing something that we would normally throw people in jail, if not execute for. But she's revered by the left, revered by the Democrat Party, and revered by everyone who thinks that promiscuity is the way to go. And at the expense of who? Black America. And she's been so good at it that she's now convinced some in Black America that this is the way to go. Now, I don't know about you, but as for me, women like that don't deserve, and I literally mean this, they do not deserve a platform. We don't want to give Hitler that. And he's behind the 8 ball when it comes to deaths, and Margaret Sanger. But after doing that, you have to admit that it was true. And you have to change. Your future depends on it. And if you don't want to do that change, don't complain that there are not enough of you. Because there are going to be, if we stop doing this and stop doing it now. The choice is yours.